How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Cheerful, analytical, positive.
Hello friends, welcome to Chat with Chithra Season 2. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today. He joined the CBSO, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, as the Chief Executive in October 1999, following 7 years as Administrator of the BBC Proms. He has held the role for 23 years and has been the longest serving current CEO of a UK orchestra. He also serves as a board member of the ABO, Marketing Birmingham, Warwick Arts Centre, and is the director for Culture Central, the collective voice of the cultural sector in the West Midlands. He will further now take up the role of principal in April at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. Dear friends, I'm delighted to welcome Stephen Maddock, OBE. Welcome to Chat with Chithra, Stephen.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Okay, thank you. I'm speaking to you today from the beautiful port city of Hamburg, where the orchestra has a concert this evening with our conductor Mirgo Grajunite-Tila, and this is the concert, I think now 8 of a 10 concert tour, which has taken us all across Europe, and it is the 67th orchestral tour that I have planned with the CBSO, and the last one, because as you say, I'm leaving at the end of April to move to the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. So lots of conflicting emotions, but and as always, things that don't go quite according to plan. We've had to cancel trains and soloists who arrive late and all of that, but it's all good fun, and we always make sure the concert happens in the end.
I'm sure. I know, I mean, Hamburg is such a beautiful place as well, and so very scenic. The orchestra must be quite excited and all geared up to perform this evening. My best wishes to all of them.
Thank you. Yes, it's a really wonderful hall. We've been coming here for 6 years now since it opened.
Right.
It's an absolutely spectacular waterfront building, and it, as happened in Birmingham after the building of Symphony Hall in the early 90s, the whole area around it has been regenerated as a result of this investment in culture. So what they call the Hafen City, the harbour city around the Elbphilharmonie, is absolutely amazing. And each time we come back, we've been most years, each time we come back, there's some new high-rise buildings have gone up and some new apartments, and there are diggers everywhere and cranes everywhere. So coming from Birmingham, we feel well at home here.
Brilliant. You described it so well, and I'm sure our viewers also will have, they can relate to such a beautiful place. We'll get going with the first question. For those viewers who don't know about the CBSO, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra was created it's now over 100 years now, and they have created musical experiences for people of all ages. It has also established a strong bond of lifelong love for live music through their orchestra and performances for not just the audiences, but also to the communities across Birmingham and elsewhere. So, Stephen, I want to get started with the first question. 23 years as the CEO of CBSO. Did you find that quite daunting? Tell me about your growing up years, and also how did you find your calling?
Yes, it still surprises me that, I've had the good fortune to have this job for so long. The CBSO had been an orchestra that I'd really grown up listening to. My awakening into classical music, I suppose, in my teenage years was in the 1980s, when the CBSO with Simon Rattle, their then conductor, seemed to be doing everything. They were the people who were, reinventing the orchestral repertoire and the visibility of classical music. And it was great thrill to be able to go and hear them a few times when I was a student as well. But my degree was not in music, it was in politics, philosophy and economics. But I spent most of my time at university organizing choirs and orchestras and singing and playing my violin and conducting and going to concerts and going to opera and, just generally being involved in music. So there was never any doubt for me that that was where I wanted to make my career. And as you said, I started off at the BBC, first of all in Radio 3, then at the Proms. And it was in 1999 that asked if I would be interested in applying for the job at CBSO, and I thought, well, I won't get it. I'm far too young, but I'll have a go because it's an orchestra I love very much. And nobody was more surprised than me that they decided to appoint me. So, and it really has been a dream job, as well as the orchestra itself, which is renowned around the world and does over 100 concerts a year, and those 67 orchestra tours I've already mentioned. We also run 4 choirs for adults and for children. We run a youth orchestra and a trainee orchestra, big education program. And in September, we're opening the Shireland CBSO Academy, which is the first secondary school of its type anywhere in the world to be created, with a major orchestra at its heart. So music education has become a really, really big part of what I do. And actually, that was why the only thing that's been able to take me away from CBSO is another big role in music education in the Midlands, namely at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire.
Right. So nice to hear about all the latest progress and improvements. I'm sure you must have gained a lot of experience in the process over so many years now, isn't it?
I mean, I suppose the thing that I've learned, I mean, many things, of course, but the thing that I learned quite early on, and it's just been about refining over time, is that with the way the arts work generally in this country, and particularly the way orchestras are funded, you have to play many different roles. So there are times when, because we receive public funding, when it feels like we're sort of an extension of the public sector, and I deal, of course, with the politicians in Birmingham, politicians nationally, Arts Council, those kinds of funding bodies, which is very important for us. So that's one hat. The second hat is we are a charity. We do a lot of fundraising. So second one, it's actually our biggest income stream now, I think, is fundraising. And that particularly inspires the work we do with music education and training, talent development, and so on. So we absolutely behave as a charity. But then my third hat is we are also a commercial business. So we have to sell tickets. That tours such as the one that I'm on at the moment happen because we are able to sell the quality of the orchestra to agents, and they can sell it on to promoters in other countries, and they hire us because it's an outstanding orchestra, and because we've negotiated good terms. So it's really those different aspects of part of my job is very artistic and part of my job is very financial, and it's that mix of those different things that I think has made it endlessly fascinating.
Amazing. But there are so many other orchestras across Birmingham or in the Midlands or UK or elsewhere, but I'm eager to know what makes the CBSO so special, how different it is from when you compare with any other orchestra, either in the Midlands or nationally or across the globe.
So I think the first thing to say is the UK actually has very few orchestras by comparison with most other kind of Western European and North American sort of first world countries, let's say. So there are only 8 full-time symphony orchestras in England that are independent, and then there are the 5 that are run by the BBC, which are currently under some kind of threat. And within that, the geography is quite sort of clumpy, if you like. So there's a lot of orchestras in London. 4 of those 8 are in London, and then there's Manchester and Liverpool. And Bournemouth covering the southwest, and then Birmingham in the middle of the country. Now, there are lots of other orchestras in Birmingham, you're quite right, but those are not full-time. So they are what you might call project orchestras. Wonderful groups like the Orchestra of the Swan or the English Symphony Orchestra do great work, but they will do perhaps a few dozen concerts a year, whereas the CBSO is performing basically 2 or 3 times every week. And I think what makes us distinctive is both internationally and as well as within the UK is just that range of things that we do at a very, very high standard. So there are orchestras that run their own choirs or run their own youth orchestras or so on, but we're famous for all of those things. And the new school in Sandwell, the Shireland CBSO Academy, it will be absolutely unique. So that is another aspect,
Right.
but also the orchestra has been famous for the wide range of music it plays. You know, everything from really serious classical music, brand new pieces, commissions, right through to sort of James Bond and Bollywood and all sorts of other things that we do. So I think that's very distinctive. And finally, I think it's been very distinctive in the way in which it has put its trust in new talent and in particularly young conductors. So each of the CBSO's last 4 conductors, from Simon Rattle onwards, right up to Mirga Grajini-Titila, have been appointed to this job in their 20s or early 30s. And that is very, very unusual for a profession that is usually about old men, in fact, and it always was men until Mirga really sort of changed perceptions on that. So I think it's been, CBSO has always been regarded as an innovator, and that's a good fit with being the kind of civic orchestra of Birmingham, if you like, because Birmingham's whole, you know, USP to the world has been about the workshop of the world, you know, a place that makes new things and is always looking forward. It's the motto of the city, and it's the name of the book that was written about the history of the CBSO. So I think looking to the future, wanting to try to redefine what orchestras should be doing, that is certainly something that we are seen as a leader in. And very regularly we get asked to, you know, come and talk to other orchestra boards or politicians around the world about how we do that, and sort of giving a blueprint of how orchestras can do that and just become more relevant within their communities. So I think that's the other special thing.
Fantastic. You did mention about the orchestra performing different genres, different styles of music. I think way back in 2004, you've tried to integrate and explore, collaborating with Bollywood music, right? I'm keen to hear about the work of CBSO with the noted Academy and Grammy Award-winning musician and composer Dr. A.R. Rahman. That must have been a groundbreaking collaboration for the CBSO. How was it working with Dr. A.R. Rahman in 2004?
It was wonderful, and it was something I will always remember very fondly. So we had been introduced through somebody in Birmingham who knew him, and it was in the context initially of Birmingham's bid to be European Capital of Culture, which of course in the end went to Liverpool, but we carried on with the project anyway. And he had written a lot of scores already at that point for cinema, but also his show Bombay Dreams had been on at the West End. So we put together with his guidance a program of orchestral scores that he'd composed up to that point. And it was an incredibly memorable occasion, 2 sold-out performances at Symphony Hall. And we also talked at that time, actually, just to give an example of how these conversations begin, about the orchestra's work in music education and about his dream of starting a conservatoire for music in India, in Chennai, which of course has now happened and is a very well-established institution. So, and it really led us on to not only to playing his music regularly again. So, for instance, even in 2020, when it was the centenary of the orchestra's very first concert, we put together a special performance, actually without live audience. It was streamed on the internet to nearly 200,000 people live. We included in that program, as well as music of Edward Elgar and other sort of famous classical composers, we included a suite from Slumdog Millionaire by A.R. Rahman, conducted by Sir Simon Rattle, so one of the CBSO's previous conductors. So he's remained within our repertoire ever since. But what we also then did was explored, a great many other aspects of Bollywood cinema music. So tributes to playback singers such as Muhammad Rafi, and to composers such as R.D. Burman, sometimes collaborating with dance groups, sometimes with a range of singers from across the UK. And we've become quite well known for doing these projects. In fact, there's another one coming up later this year that I'm not allowed to tell anyone about yet, but we will be seen doing this again. And really, when we did it for the first time in 2004, again, nobody, as far as we could tell, no full symphony orchestra like CBSO had done complete concerts of Bollywood music in this way. And we've now done, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 different projects, and well, more than a dozen concerts, I think, including some national tours. So it sort of became a very relevant and important part of the orchestra. We built up quite a lot of experience as to how to play that music, which has been really wonderful.
Right, amazing, isn't it? I'm sure it's so very nice to hear that you've collaborated with a different style and different genre of music, and particularly the compositions of Bollywood composers such as R.D. Burman and singers such as Rafi. They're all classics by themselves, and it's so nice to know that this collaboration is blending different cultures as well in the.
Absolutely. We have another one coming later this year, which is a collaboration with a group who call themselves the Orchestral Qawwali Project, and that is blending Qawwali. We did a Qawwali concert some years ago with Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, and this is another collaboration, but with some UK-based artists who have taken some sort of classic Qawwali melodies and songs and adapted them for accompaniment with a full orchestra. There's a CD they've already produced. These wonderful musicians, and I think ours again will be the first time they've worked with a really large orchestra on that project. So that's something else I'm really looking forward to. It will be after I have left the CBSO, but I will nevertheless be looking forward to coming back to listen to it.
Absolutely, keep me posted on that.
Absolutely, I will.
As a CEO of the CBSO, right from where you started, how has your learning helped you in the way you are today? What has been your learning experience? I know it is not the same every year. You must have had some challenges. How did you navigate and get back on track?
Yeah, lots of challenges. I mean, I think, in general terms, this mixed economy for UK orchestras, with private funding and government funding and commercial income and so on, is when it works well, can work really well. But we don't have the same public funding of orchestras elsewhere in Europe, and we don't have the same private funding as orchestras in America. We kind of sit between the two. So it's a constant battle to make sure that you have enough resources to do all the things you really want to do. It's also, I think, one of the great joys, but also one of the great challenges about what we do is that we are very busy. It's a really big program. If you go and look at the CBSO website and see the range of things that we do, that is quite unusual. And when people come to work for us, who've worked elsewhere in the arts, let's say, to begin with, they are quite kind of taken aback by that, and it's the people who can cope with the pace really love it, and the people who find the pace a bit much can tend to struggle. But I think I've learned a great deal from all sorts of people, actually, from the artists that we work with, the members of the orchestra, the conductors and soloists that we have here, from friends and colleagues who run other orchestras around the world. I think by and large, orchestras do not compete with each other very much. I mean, there's maybe, with the other orchestras in the UK, there's maybe 10% of what we do where we are in competition with each other, but 90% of it, we have the same interests. So really working closely together with colleagues elsewhere in the sector, I think has been a real strength for this sector. I think that's happened more in the last 20 years than perhaps was the case before, and it's going to have to happen even more in the future. So there's that. I think for me also, just retaining my love of music has been incredibly important. So however complicated a day at work might be, if I get to walk the 5 minutes to Symphony Hall from my office and sit down and listen to the orchestra playing, with wonderful artists in one of the best halls in the world, playing music that I've helped choose, it's an incredible gift and just a wonderful feeling that can take away, pretty much any cares that you might have about the job. So the job satisfaction has been absolutely tremendous. And I suppose in terms of sort of coping myself with all of that, I mean, I think, I've been very lucky to have supportive friends and family around me, all of that. I think I have learned the hard way myself that, work-life balance is really important. And so I try to lead from the front on that, so that on days when I don't have concerts in the evening, to make sure I go home in good time, to make sure I'm switching off email and, having downtime away from the office, because one of the downsides of our sort of 24/7 culture is that people can sometimes expect to be able to reach you at any time of day or night. And, I think I've learned, as I say, I've learned the hard way how to stop that becoming kind of a destructive force. So yeah, I think work-life balance important, but also just being very motivated about what you do, and I'm very much a sort of glass half full person. So I don't let difficult things in our industry or in our city or in the economy or within our own organization, I don't let them get me down. I really don't. I'm always, always looking for what's the solution. What are we going to do about this? We are where we are. What are we going to do? So I think that's also quite important. Otherwise, these jobs can become a bit overwhelming, I think.
That's very inspiring to hear, and perhaps that's one of the main reasons why you've been the CEO for 23 years in a row now. So that's amazing. So while you were talking about the performances by the CBSO, I'd like to talk to you about some of the proudest accomplishments of the CBSO and one of the most memorable performances. I'm sure you will have many, but one of the most memorable performance that you would always cherish.
Gosh, it's hard to pick out just a few, really, but I am getting asked this question quite a lot, so I will give you some answers.
Sure.
I think with Zachary Oromo, who was the conductor of the CBSO for my first 10 years here, he was a really, really big champion of the music of Edward Elgar. And Elgar is obviously a proud Midlander, Wolverhampton Wanderers supporter, and born in Malvern in Worcestershire. And when it was Elgar's 150th birthday in 2007, we did over a weekend 3 huge works that Elgar had written for Birmingham, all with CBSO, and that was an incredibly special and memorable occasion. I think with Andres Nelsons, who was Oromo's successor, conductor from 2008 to 2015, there were some amazing experiences both on tour and in Birmingham. But his performances of operas by Wagner were very, very special occasions. Parsifal, which is an opera kind of full of actually kind of Eastern mysticism. Actually, I mean, it's as close to Buddhism as it is to Christianity, if you look carefully. And we performed that in Birmingham and in Vienna at the Musikverein, which is one of the kind of holiest places of classical music. And with Mirga Gražinytė-Tyler, who was Nelson's successor from 2016 until last year. Many, many memorable things again, but being able to perform great sort of Viennese works like Beethoven's Fifth and Mahler's First Symphony, be able to perform those in the Musikverein in Vienna was very, very special indeed. But those are the big, high-profile, prestigious occasions. I mean, I've also taken just as much pleasure over the years from things like the orchestra's collaborations with Birmingham Opera Company, which are, where we take over a warehouse in Digbeth, or the Edgbaston Reservoir, the ballroom in the Edgbaston Reservoir was another one for a Shostakovich opera, and we do fully stage opera performances with a really diverse cast of local people and international soloists, and performed to just such a high standard, but to an audience who are there in their sensible shoes and their coats because they're in a freezing cold warehouse. Those kinds of things have been amazing. Seeing the growth and development of the CBSO Youth Orchestra, which we began in 2004, and has had an amazing list of alumni who've gone on to extraordinary things in music, but also in life, and some of them have come back to work for CBSO. That's been really, really inspiring, as has the work of our children's chorus and youth chorus, which my own daughter sang in for many, many years. So I think those things are great, but also I just get a great deal of pleasure, even from from our lesson, although I'm a classical specialist, from, you know, when we do things like songs from the musicals, or we did a James Bond night recently, or we do the Classic FM Hall of Fame, or things like that in our Friday night series. Huge pleasure in doing those things and doing them really well. So I think that's been the sort of the calling card of everything we do, whatever we do, whether it's playing in you know, in Centenary Square, or it's playing at New Street Station, which we've done as well a few times, or it's playing on these amazing famous stages like Carnegie Hall or the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, where both of which we've done in the last 6 months. Whatever we do, we should do it really, really well. And if we're doing it well, then I feel proud and enjoying those performances in the moment.
Fantastic. That's so very inspiring. Are there any words of advice that you can hand on to your colleagues coming up in the world, in the administrative end of things?
I've been thinking about this quite a lot as well, I must say. I mean, I do think, you know, remembering that what we are here to do is for the benefit of the audience rather than for the benefit of, you know, the people who work at CBSO. That we want, you know, we want them to be happy as well, but always thinking about audience. And I think also arts organizations have become very obsessed recently with relevance and being important. And, you know, if you open the arts pages of a newspaper or a magazine or anything like that, you know, lots and lots of interviews and previews and reviews and things like that of work that is important and groundbreaking and you know, and trying to be relevant, and all of that stuff's really important, and that's been a big guiding influence on lots of what we've done. But I think it's also totally fine that from time to time what we do is we just bring people great joy. You know, that actually the experience of live music, especially played as brilliantly as it is by the CBSO and in as wonderful and welcoming an environment as Symphony Hall, part of what we're doing is just giving people something in their lives that they can really enjoy. You know, people can have a wonderful time for 2 hours, switching off from their telephone, switching off from, you know, the 24/7 culture that surrounds them, and give themselves over to music in whatever way they want to listen to it, whether with an analytical ear or with just, you know, enjoying the sound it makes. This is all totally fine, and people will go home, we know, you know, having really enjoyed themselves. And we saw this particularly strongly after COVID, and as we've rebuilt audiences after COVID, we all spent, you know, best part of 2 years locked in our own houses, not being able to enjoy anything with other people. And just as it's different seeing big movies in a cinema with other people all reacting to things at the same time, that's, you know, a different qualitative experience than sitting at home and watching it on your tablet. You know, so listening to live music in a great acoustic with people around you is an incredibly joyful shared experience. So I think I always want people to remember that, you know, we have all these other justifications for politicians and so on, and all of that's fine and worthy and important, but also sometimes what we're just doing is bringing joy into people's lives, and that's also fine.
Beautiful, creating good memories and give the audience you know, to
shared experiences
to take back home, right? On a personal front, what is your vision going forward?
I've chosen to change career at this point partly as a challenge to myself. I'm 55 this year, and I thought, well, either I need to do something else or it's never going to happen. So you know, I'd always said I didn't want to run another orchestra, and frankly, although there were opportunities in London, I also have no interest in going back to work in London at this stage in my career. To be honest, I don't want to spend my whole life commuting, and I don't want to have to move to a smaller house in order to be closer to London. So quality of life, as I say, remains very important to me. The new job is, I think, going to be sufficiently different that it will contain some really great challenges for me, but hopefully sufficiently similar that I will know how to deal with those. It's not like I'm going to go and be a scuba diving instructor or something. You know, it is an area I know something about. So I'm looking forward to that. I think on a personal level, the thing I've been putting off for years and years and years is my own music making. And I have very, very occasionally picked up my violin. I'm a very lapsed violinist, but I do still have an instrument. So I can absolutely see myself perhaps playing a little bit more, mostly I think probably just in private rather than anywhere in public, but let's see. And the same is true of singing. I used to sing a great deal in choirs when I was younger, and I really haven't done very much singing at all in recent years. So I think my own music making, now that my children have been sent out into the world as well, certainly one's at university and one's now working, so I don't have the excuse of childcare in the same way to deal with. So I think you know, putting my money where my mouth is and actually making music myself feels like a really important personal goal.
That's interesting. So we are most likely to hear in the coming years a few of your compositions, and perhaps in your own voice.
We'll see. I'm not making any promises.
So Stephen, we come to the end of the first section of this chat, and the second is called the lighter side of you, which is, in other words, one-line answers. So are we ready?
Very good. Go for it.
How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Cheerful, analytical, positive.
If you didn't live in Birmingham, where would you live?
I think I'd really love to live in Cannes. In Cannes, in the south of France. I absolutely love it there.
Right. Do you think anyone can become a CEO?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, you know, training, attitude of mind, all of these things can be learned or taught. So yeah.
Fantastic. What do you listen to most when you are in the car, when you drive?
Actually, mostly speech. I listen to podcasts. I listen to podcasts about football and politics and film and history. The rest is history. I love comedy, all sorts of things. Mostly not arts things, because I get so much musical work. If I'm listening to music in the car, it's probably going to be show tunes or some pop or some jazz. I find I'm too critical a listener to listen to classical music that way, if I'm honest.
Right. Who's your role model?
Ooh. Well, my first, well, two of my bosses at the BBC when I worked at the Proms were very important influences on me. So John Drummond and then Nick Kenyon, who I worked for subsequently, in different ways, about having the courage of your own convictions, about backing your staff, about having a work-life balance, and about sort of really always putting quality first. They were very, very influential on me.
Right. What would you choose between the two, coffee or chocolate?
Oh, to drink, definitely coffee.
Okay. If you could have dinner with one person, who would that be?
Ooh. Do they have to still be alive?
Doesn't matter.
I would really have loved to have known Edward Elgar. The more I know his music, the more I know about the man. I just think he's absolutely fascinating. So that would be my dream.
Okay. What's that something people don't know more about you?
Well, something that's very important to me, but I think most of my colleagues are aware of, is I'm a lifelong fan of Manchester City. I am an absolute sort of crazy Man City fan.
Right. Okay. So with this, we come to the end of this very lively chat, and thank you so much for joining me today. Good luck with your new role as the principal of the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. I hope to meet you in person sometime, and all the very best, Stephen.
Thank you, Chithra. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Take care.
Great. See
Bye.
you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.